Hello, 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 everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. Okay, hello.
Hello.
Hold on, I know there's an echo. There you go. Can you hear me? Yes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Class 1 of Real Property. How's everyone doing tonight? Ashley, glad to have you. Glad to have you. It's nice to see so many familiar faces. So, all right, let's do a little survey. How many of you, is this your first class at NPC? Or let's see all the newbies first. Your very first class. All right, so let's give a round of applause to your very first class. Ooh. Okay, anyone, is this your very last class before you get your certificate or Elizabeth, Jennifer? Okay, so Elizabeth and Jennifer, are you getting a certificate, a BA, an AA? What are you getting? Certificate. Yay. Well, guess what? By default, you two get to be our valedictorian for our class. Nice job. Okay, so for everybody else, feel free to just type into the class approximately how many classes have you had? Is it your first, second, third? Well, I guess we're not first or last, but 8th, 13th, 4th, 3rd, 6th, 2nd. Yay, second with me. Okay, a good variety. All right, great. Well, on the slide here is yours truly. This is me. I'm Professor Dee Dee Sandler. This is me and my really adorable daughter, who I happen to be very fond of. I'm sure that at some point in this class, you will hear her make a grand appearance in class because she likes to occasionally come say hi. We have a very sweet little puppy whose name is Sunday, not like the day of the week, but like a chocolate sundae. And she will make an appearance in class at some point too because she likes to bark if anything's happening. Before COVID, I am in my 11th year of teaching at NPC. Before COVID, I used to work out of an office when I teach, and now I work out of a home office when I teach. So we really try and keep it limited, but occasionally you will get to meet the small child or the dog. The child I control better than the puppy. But so a little bit about me. I graduated law school in, you would think I would have this spiel down. And it's really sad that I can never remember what year I graduated law school. I graduated college in 98, and then 2002 is when I graduated law school. I had to think about that for a second. And I've worked in a wide variety of legal practices since I have graduated law school. I was at the Arizona Attorney General's office for a number of years. I have been at the Legal Defender's Office. I have been at numerous private law firms, and most recently, since 2014, I've had my own practice. I work a lot of family law, domestic relations, immigration. I work with kids in the foster care system. I do some criminal and some real property. As a solo practitioner, you kind of eat whatever you can. I'm saying that wrong. You kind of take whatever you can get. That's what I'm trying to say. And so as a solo practitioner, you get a little bit of everything. What is my favorite area? Is this where I'm supposed to lie and say real property? Real property is not my favorite area, but I'm not. But I'm very confident we're going to have a great class. Real property, I think that it's a little bit challenging compared to some other classes. It's not as straightforward as like contracts is really straightforward. Criminal law is really straightforward. Even certain areas of practice is just really statutory based and really straightforward. Other areas like family law are difficult because they're really emotional. What's difficult about real property, it uses a lot of really archaic language, and in some other areas of law, the language doesn't matter so much. But in real property, that historically it's based on all these kind of really quirky rules from old British rules, and sometimes those old quirky rules don't make a lot of sense. And other areas of civil law have really reformed the language, so it's a much more modern language about the reasonable person standard and duty, breach, causation, and damages. And the real property, you will see a lot of the remnants of this very old archaic system when we get to certain topics, and that you'll see as we go that it is, and we'll look at the slides here in a minute, but there's some tricky language to real property law, whereas I'm teaching immigration law right now too, and you'll see compared to immigration law, which is taught the hour after this, immigration law is going to seem like easy breezy. So here are my tips for real property, because this is a hard class, and I'm not going to lie. I am also your course grader. I don't mean to scare you, because everybody who wants an A can earn an A. Our assignments are, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or anywhere in between. But really, what's lovely about National Paralegal and different from a brick or mortar school that works on a curve, so many people have to get A's and so many people have to get F's. In this class, anybody who wants an A can earn an A. I can give it, if all 51 people in class earn A's, I can give 51 A's. So, it's what you put into it is what you'll get out of it. So my couple suggestions for you is, obviously you're not required to attend live classes. All classes are recorded, but to the extent that you can attend live classes and ask questions, that obviously is helpful. highly, highly, highly suggest that you, if not read every word of the material before you come to class, you at least look at the material before you come to class in the reading. It is going to be much easier to understand the information that I'm giving you during our class if you've looked at the reading and have some understanding of what it is that I'm talking about. Now, I'm a realist. I really am. And for those of you who have been with me for other classes, I don't BS you. Like, I tell you when it doesn't matter if you read things. I tell you when, that, you should, and the reality is that I get we're all busy. Many of you are parents or caregivers or working or have other things going on in your life. And I completely understand it's not always practical to read all the material before coming to every class. This is one class where you really should. It will really help you in this class. So that is just kind of some background stuff. Remember, you have 5 assignments and 3 exams for this class. I will go over all of the assignments in class as we review the materials, so know that I will go over that. I think I said this, but I'm the grader as well. If you're new, make sure that you read the course syllabus. If you're old, make sure that you read the course syllabus. So read the course syllabus. I also make a suggestion that you take a look at the student handbook. Make sure that you familiarize yourself with things like student mentors. Make sure that you are aware of the fact of the early submission deadline. If you submit up to 2 assignments at the beginning of class, I will give you feedback on them, and you can redo them for a higher grade if you want to. Please also make note of the course deadline. The course deadline is going to be 30 days after the final class. No extensions in the class are possible if you don't submit at least one assignment or exam during this course. And that please keep in mind that all deadlines are Eastern Standard Time. So when it says that something's due by 11:59 Eastern Standard Time, if you do not submit something by that time, it would be impossible for you to then be able to take a course extension. Okay. Is the book needed? There is course material online for this course, so there's no specific textbook that you have to order, although I think there are some supplementary things in the course syllabus. Thank you, Ashley, for answering that. I just saw that. Okay. Mentors, yes. If you are a new student, please make sure that you take advantage of your mentor. They can help you with information for the class and writing your assignments. I highly also recommend that you take a look at the plagiarism policy and make sure that you're submitting all the work that is original. Okay. I think, one other housekeeping things. Remember, you have to interact with the school every week. And so the weeks end on Sunday by NPC, so you must interact with the school once per week on a Monday through Sunday basis, and that you can interact with the school by coming to a live class and taking the interactive quiz. You can interact with the school by submitting an assignment or submitting an exam also. So those are ways that you can interact with the school, or you can do the interaction question if you don't want to submit an assignment or exam and you can't come to class. So the interaction questions are going to be available on the course website. Next, make sure, I know the other thing I was going to tell you, that what was I going to say? I know what I was going to say. 2 things. One is make sure you pace yourself with this class. This is not the class that you want to save 3 exams and 5 assignments till the very end, because you likely will not pass it. This is a hard class. Pace yourself. Try, after week 3, which is the assignment walkthrough, try and do at least 1 assignment or exam a week so that you don't fall behind. That those of you who have experience, please speak to the new kids. Once you fall behind, how hard is it to catch up in one course once you start a new course? I I'm telling the truth, right? Agreed. We've all done it. I mean, like, everybody's done it. But once you fall behind, like, most people don't do it again. It is so stressful, and it is so hard to get caught up. So really try and pace yourself, make a schedule for yourself of when you're going to get things done, and do your best to stick to it. Look at the course syllabus. There's a couple adjustments. So I am here teaching with you this week on Monday and Wednesday. Next week on the 15th, you are having Professor Mike Jones is substituting this class. So next Monday the 15th, Professor Mike Jones is substituting the class. There is no live class on Wednesday, November 17th. No live class on Wednesday, November 17th. So if you're going to get your interaction from the class that week, it's got to be on the 15th. And then on Monday, November 22nd, Professor Aaron Bevins is substituting that class. And then I will be back on Wednesday, November 24th, the eve of Thanksgiving. So we have some excellent guest subs for this class. Mike Jones, everyone loves him. Aaron, I don't know if she goes by Bevins or Stefan at the school. Sorry, I've known her for so many years that I'm just not sure which last name she uses here. Anyone know? Does she use Bevins or Stefan? But nonetheless, if anyone, Stefan, okay. Stefan is her maiden name. Bevins is her married name, and I think she's been married now like 7 or 8 years. But yeah, I never know which one she uses anymore because, I'm going to be out of the country next week on the 15th to the 22nd, and so that is why you're having some substitute professors, and so they will be studying the class. I'm going to Israel. Woo, and I'm so excited. I'm leaving the kid at home, and I'm super excited. Okay, anyways, let's move on. So let's get started with the material for tonight. And let me pull up the slides. Okay, real property. So remember, just a few minutes ago, how somebody asked that great question about, why don't I love real property as much, or what's hard about real property? And I said, the language of real property is hard. It's very, very specific language. So this is what leads us to this first slide, that real property uses very specific language. Other areas of civil law, which I am talking about, when I talk about other areas of civil law, I'm talking about like torts, domestic relations, contracts. So that's what I am saying when I refer to other areas of civil law. So other areas of civil law developed as a result of centuries of judicial decisions. Those centuries of judicial decisions is what we call common law. That's what we call common law. And real property law is developed as a result of the whims of William the Conqueror. So remember that the real property system, this was a system of kings and lords who ruled that feudal system. And that is how the rules of real property started and where the real property laws came from. Some other types of civil litigation are developed to meet the reasonable expectations of reasonable people. So we use this reasonable person standard of what would a reasonable person do in other areas of law. In real property, it's right in its original form, it really didn't care about what the reasonable expectations were of other people. Who did it care about? I mean, it was developed. I'm here. Sorry. The interesting thing that I'm learning is I'm on my computer, but I have my sound going through my phone. And what I learned is that if I get an incoming call, it turns my sound off on my phone with you guys. I don't know why. For those of you who just came from my last class with me, we had a whole sound saga, and we got around the sound saga by making the sound go through my phone. But what I've learned now is that if I get an incoming call, I have to turn off the sound and turn it back on. So nobody's allowed to call me for the next 2 hours. Okay, but so, yeah, it's all about. So, right, real property law was developed to protect the ruling class. Who was the ruling class? It was the kings and the lords were the ruling class. They were, right, in old British law, they were the ones who owned the properties. So did they care what the peasant folks were doing or what the reasonable expectations were of reasonable people? Heck no. What did they care about? They cared about the ruling class, the kings and the lords, who were the property owners. Whereas other types of civil litigation, of civil law, are developed to protect all the people in society equally. It doesn't matter what class you're from. So other areas of civil law, historical doctrines exist in some limited form because the laws made sense. But a lot of these more historic doctrines have been modernized under modern rule, where real property law, these historic laws are obsolete because they developed as a result of problems inherent in the system of the British, but for some reason they stuck around, a lot of them. So other areas of civil language, it puts little stock in style and lots of stock in substance. So if I'm trying to say Cynthia committed the tort of, not living up to the reasonable expectations of society because she failed to meet the standard of care. Anyone know what tort I might be talking about? Cynthia failed to meet the standard of care that was expected for her in society. She failed to uphold her duty of care. Negligence, right? So other areas of care, I don't necessarily have to say, this is called negligence. As long as that my substantive explanation of what's happening is sufficient for Cynthia to know what I'm trying to say she did, that's good. And so other areas, if you don't have the exact legal language, it doesn't matter. You can still move forward with your cause of action. Real property, wait till you guys see. The conveyance, the language, the recording, there is very specific language. And in a way that makes it easy for your assignments and exam because you know you're going to write down what the really specific language is. And if you don't see that really specific language, then you know it's not that. But with real property law, there is a lot of stock in the exact language. Like you might see something like, on the record or for, you'll see as we move forward on it. Don't be scared. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. And the good news for you is that I'm your grader too. So you can trust that the things I'm telling you are going to be true on your assignments and exams. Because guess what? I'm grading them. Okay. And I like to think that I'm fair. So hopefully you do too. Okay. So this week we are going to focus on personal property. That for the large majority of this class, we are going to be focused on real property, hence the name of the course, Real Property Law. But for tonight and Wednesday night, we are going to spend a couple classes talking about personal property. And then in class 3, we're going to do an assignment walkthrough. And then starting in class 4, we're going to move on to the stuff that's relevant to landlord-tenants, real properties, contracts, recording systems, and so forth and so on. But today, we're going to take a step back, and we're going to look at the rules for personal property. So first, what is personal property? Anyone want to take a guess? Oh, wait, thanks, guys. What is personal property? Something that can be moved, okay. Not a house. Yes, that's really what I was looking for. That is all of it. Not a house. Real property is anything that's not land. Personal property is anything that's not land. Very good. So your cell phone is personal property. Your clothes are personal property. Your wedding ring is personal property. Your stuff is personal property. Your object is personal property. Your car is your personal property. Your pet is your personal property. Anything that is not land. So there are three basic types of property. Real property, which is a house, your land, your real estate. Real property is anything that's attached to the ground. Real property. Personal property, your wristwatch, your money, your computer, your pet, etc. The third type of property that is outside the scope of this course that we're not going to discuss in this course, but you should know exists, is the idea of intellectual property. Intellectual property are things like patents, copyrights, trademarks. And intellectual property is its own course, so we're not going to go over it in this course, but know that it exists. Okay, so the idea that we're talking about right now is lost property. And we are talking about this idea of lost personal property. So if any of you have kids or ever interact with kids, if you were to go ask a child who found $5 in the street, hey honey, who does this $5 belong to? Who do you think they would say gets to keep that $5? Yes, hello, finders, keepers, them. Gosh, where do you think that old maxim came from, right? Finders, keepers, losers, weepers. Well, I know if my kid found $5 in the street, she's going to think it's hers. However, unfortunately, that's not actually the law. The law is that if you find something that belongs to somebody else, you must make an effort to return it. So if I find $100 in the middle of the street and I think to myself, gosh, I think I'm just going to keep this, and I stuff it in my pocket, the truth of the matter is that I could be charged with larceny. Now, is anyone really going to probably charge me with a crime for the $100 I stuck in my pocket? No. But hypothetically, you could be. And let's say I found something bigger than that. I found $100,000 under the floorboards in the new house I moved into. I find a wedding ring in the middle of a street. Anything that I find that really would be worth value, if I actually just keep it, I can be charged with larceny. The maxim of finders, keepers, losers, weepers is not actually correct, because the idea being is that you don't have to go crazy looking for the person who might be the original owner. But you have an obligation to at least do some due diligence. So if I were to find a diamond ring on the sidewalk, do you think it's sufficient if I put up some flyers around the neighborhood and then make a report to the police that I lost, I found a diamond ring? If you're the true owner, call, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I don't have to take out ads in every circulation around town and put up a reward for it. I'm not required to take all extensive means, possible. I'm just asked to go and do some good faith, effort to try and locate the true owner. So, if I were to lose a ring, and the ring really belonged to Taisha, who is the true owner? Whose rights are superior? Mine or hers? Right, Taisha's are. So the rights of Taisha, the original owner, her rights are going to be superior to my rights. But my rights are superior to the rest of the world. So I find Taisha's ring, and Amanda comes and steals it from me. Can Amanda say, well, it wasn't yours anyways, it belonged to Taisha? Or does she have a duty to me at that point? Right, she can't do that. She has a duty to me at that point. So the rights of the finder with respect to the true owner are that the true owner, Taisha, in this matter, her rights are going to be superior to mine. But if I can't find Taisha after I make a reasonable attempt to locate Taisha, then, right, my rights kick in. But my rights to whatever I found, in this case the ring, are still going to be superior to everyone other than Taisha. So if my rights are superior to the rest of the world to that property, such that if Amanda tries to take that ring from me, I can ask her to be liable, because even though I'm not the original owner, she is, I can make a claim saying that she has an offense against my possession. So while the true owner's rights are superior to mine, my rights are superior to the rest of the world. And if you keep someone's property that does not belong to you without making an effort to try to find the original owner, in many jurisdictions, you can be charged with larceny. Right, so whoever stole it from me, no, my rights are superior. Okay, moving right along. What else? I felt like I had one of the things I wanted to tell you. Nope. Okay. So now we're moving on to, oh wait, I see a question in the chat. So, is there a time limit to the effort before the finder can give up? So no, I mean, you just have to make a reasonable effort. You know, if your reasonable effort is that you put up some flyers around the neighborhood and made a police report, that might take you a week or that might take you a month. So there's not a specific time limit that I'm aware of. But keep in mind also, too, that I am teaching you common law principles. You know, we didn't all type in where we live, but if we were to do a survey of where everyone in this class lives, we are all over the country. I do not teach specific state law. I teach general real property principles. So in your jurisdictions, many jurisdictions have actual rules on their books for finding lost property. So the reality is that you would need to look at the rules in your jurisdiction to see if your jurisdiction had a time limit, or if your jurisdiction, some jurisdictions have specific requirements of what you need to do if you find lost property. So if you lived in a jurisdiction like that, you'd obviously have to follow your own jurisdictional rules for what you need to do in your jurisdiction if you find lost property. Okay, so now, Taisha, I don't know what you want me to explain more of. And Ashley, I'm not sure how you're asking me, what do I know? How do you know what? So, feel free to type that in the chat. I'm going to just give it 1 minute before I move on. And just a word about the chat for all you new students. Everybody should always feel welcome to type questions relevant to the class in the chat. Sometimes people talk about things in the chat that are not relevant to what I'm talking about. And so that can be distracting sometimes. If you're talking about something that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about in the chat, I am going to call you out about it, and I'm going to ask you to stop. If you are in a brick or mortar classroom, if I'm talking about real property, and you're, in the back of the classroom screaming to someone in the front row, where do you live? That's kind of like what talking in the chat off topic is like. So if I'm talking about real property, Ashley, please don't be asking Malia what state she lives in. And obviously I'm just using that as an example. I know you would never do that. So I will clear the chat if it gets off topic. The other thing I want to tell you is we only meet for an hour. It's impossible for me to answer everybody's questions all the time. So I do my best to answer things that I know are not on the slide and are not in the reading. So if I skip your question, it's not that it wasn't a good question. I either know that it's in the reading, I know that it's in the slides, if you wait for me to keep talking in the slides, or that it's not relevant to what I'm talking about right now. If I skip your question and you are just dying to know the answer to it, you are always free to email me any question that I did not get to. So please don't be offended if I don't answer your question. It does not mean it's not a good question. So how do you know who the true owner of the lost property is? You may not, Ashley. That's why you have to make a good faith effort to try and find that person. So if I find a diamond ring outside on the street, I probably don't know who the true owner is. But maybe I make some flyers and put them up in the mailboxes around town that says, lost diamond ring. If you lost a ring, please bring a picture of it, to my house or proof of ownership. We just had one of those on our mailboxes. It was a lost pet, lost dog or cat. I forget what it was. If you are the true owner, we hope to return it to the true owner. Please bring a picture of your ownership and contact us at ABC address. And then maybe you make a police report and say, I found a diamond ring on these cross streets. And then maybe sometimes inside a ring, it will say the name of the jewelry shop. So let's say it says K Jewelry, and there's a K Jewelry down the road. Maybe you call K Jewelry and say, hey, do you know who this ring is registered to? And if after you made a good faith effort to find the true owner and you can't, then that property is really yours at that point. And you don't have to look forever and ever and ever. Then you can keep that property pending someone coming forward for it. But you may never find the true owner. I mean, I found money on the floor before or on the ground or things on the ground, and I never found the true owner. I found people's wallets when I've tried to find them, and I never found the true owner. Superior meaning greater. Yes, that's correct. No such thing as common sense. Yeah, social media is another great way to try and look for it. Actually, people put things in social media groups all the time, like we have a hiking group, a local hiking group, and people lose things like car keys and wallets all the time on the hiking trail, and people will put on the social media like, hey, did anyone lose a Ford car key or a Gucci wallet? So the questions are getting too specific, Kayla, with something like that. I just can't answer that. So that's too precise for what I'm talking about, and I got to move on now to the next topic. Sorry. There's no set time frame that I'm giving you. And so obviously if you spent the money and it's not available and the true owner thinks that they are entitled to it, they're going to sue you for the money. So are we talking $5,000 or are we talking $5? If we're talking, $5 and you looked for a couple days and couldn't find it and spent it, probably no big deal. If you're talking about $100,000 and you looked for 5 days and spent it, you're probably going to owe them the money back. So, and again, like I said, please keep in mind that this is really going to also depend on what the rules are of the state and what you lost or found the property. Okay. So, you're not going to know that the property owner, Crystal, is deceased because you don't know who the property owner is, and you're going to be searching for the true property owner. In the event of the wedding ring, if, let's say, Susie comes forward and says, oh, that's my mom's wedding ring and she died this week, it still goes back to Susie and or Susie's estate. Okay, moving on to the rule of capture. This is a simple rule with very complex consequences. For property not owned by anyone that's lost at 3, feet, thrown out, or was never anyone's to begin with, the general rule is the old maxim. So if the property was never owned by anyone to start with, that is where you get finders, keepers, losers, weepers. So if the property never belonged to anyone to start with, the first person to take possession of it is the one who gets ownership of it. So, like I said, something that was thrown out that now I find and I want. A wild animal that never belonged to anyone. property that was abandoned at sea. If it doesn't belong to anyone and I'm the first one to find it and I think it's a treasure, finders, keepers, losers, weepers. This also applies to fugitive resources. And so what are something that is a fugitive resource? You see on the slide here something like resources that are underneath the ground, like oil. So we are not going to go over oil very much in gas in this class. It can have its own entire class for oil and gas. The general rule for oil and gas, though, gas, when it comes to real property, is that the person who comes into possession first of it can keep it, and but you can't trespass onto somebody else's property to get it. So with underground resources, if you come into contact with it, so long as it's on your ground and you're not trespassing onto anybody else's property to get it, use it all you want. So what is the rule of rationale soli? If you trespass onto somebody else's property to get a fugitive resource, so I trespass onto Crystal's property for the purpose of getting that oil or getting that gas, or let's say there's an animal I want to capture that's on her property. So if I trespass on her property for the purpose of getting something I want, and let's say I kill the bear that I want that's on her property, and that Crystal comes home and says, wow, I want that bear. Who gets it, me or Crystal? Yeah, Crystal is the true owner of that bear. So I can't trespass onto Crystal's property to benefit from that wild animal or from that gas or for that oil. Now, could I put food out on my property and hope that the wild bear comes to my property so I can have it? Sure, yeah, absolutely. But I can't benefit from trespassing onto Crystal's property. Okay, let's talk about animals. Oh, don't we all love animals? Same basic rules. Well, maybe not everyone, but I love animals. Okay, chase. Even an eventual capture is not enough for possession. So if I am in hot pursuit of a deer that's running down the street, and I'm like, I'm going to get that deer. That deer is mine. And then out comes Honey. And Honey's like, oh, what a cute deer. I want to get that deer too, because Dee Dee I know is going to kill the deer and eat the deer. And I am a real deer lover. And I'm going to take that deer home, and I'm going to cuddle that deer and make that deer ready for Christmas. And so Honey starts racing me down the street to get the deer. Is the deer mine just because I am in hot pursuit of that deer? No, right? If I get to the deer first and capture the deer, then is the deer mine? Yeah, if I get to the deer and capture the deer is mine. But lo and behold, I'm a quadriplegic, and I don't run very fast. And Honey over here, she's an Olympic runner. And she, clearly outpaces me on the way to catch that deer. And she captures that deer first. Who owns that deer? Honey does, right? She bags it, she tags it, it's hers. You bag it, you tag it, it's yours. Wasn't there a song that said that? Bag it, tag it. No, I can't remember the rest of it. What song that was? It's going to be stuck in my head, and it's going to drive me nuts. Anyone, chime in. But yes, bag it, tag it, and you own it. Okay. What about fishing? What about if I go fishing in a lake and I make a net so big that it covers the entire lake? Does that mean that any fish in that lake is mine? No. Or if I go out to the ocean and I throw a huge net over a large part of it, that doesn't mean that everything under it is mine just because I have a net laying over it. If you know, Jennifer over here gets in and swims and catches some fish, can she still be the one that's in possession of the fish? Yes, Cynthia. Nice work. Tag it, sell it to the butcher of the store. I won't sing for you guys, but yes, nice work. I knew that was a song. Okay. So, what about the fish? If I have a net over it, but Jennifer goes in and swims and gets the fish anyways, is it mine or is it Jennifer's? No, it's Jennifer's. Just because I have a net doesn't make it mine. So long as there's a large enough space for the fish to swim around freely, and then Jennifer can still try to possess it too. So if I have like, anyone ever take, go and get like tadpoles or frogs, and you have one of those like little nets that, you're scooping in just to get your little frog or tadpole. If I have my fish in a small net of that kind of scale, what's in the net is going to be my capture. But I can't just blanket, put a huge net over the ocean or over an entire lake and say everything in it is mine. If I have a huge net like that, if all the fish are still swimming around freely in the water, anybody else can try and capture that animal too. If I have a little one of those small fishing nets that my little frog is in, that it's not swimming around freely, I've captured it. Okay. What about wounded animals not yet in possession? So going back to Honey and mine's race, she's an Olympic runner, and that I shoot the deer first, and I wound the deer, but I don't kill the deer. And then Honey over there, she goes and finishes the job, brands that baby, and takes it home. Does it matter that I wounded it first, or is it still Honey's? Yeah, it's still Honey's. So with wounded animals, if it's not yet in my possession, even if I shot it, if Honey, it's whoever's going to capture it. So if Honey's the one who bags it and tags it, it's Honey's. Okay, I think I missed some questions. So does it come back to what is reasonable? No, it's not a reasonable person test. That's not how real property works. But, like I said, if the fish can swim around freely under the net such that they're not actually captured and can swim anywhere they want, then no, then it doesn't belong to me. If my net is small enough that I can pick the net out of the water and catch that specific fish and nobody else can take it, then yes, I've captured that fish. And yes, after you pull the net out and put it on your boat, it is going to belong to you. Okay, let's talk about captured animals that escape. And this will be Crystal's question. All right, so I have a pet dog, and it escapes. This is that last bullet point, captured animals that escape, and this is what I think Crystal had this question in the chat. We hadn't gotten to it yet, but now we're here. So if I have a pet dog and my dog escapes, I have little Lulu, and Lulu gets out of the house. And Lulu, I'm embarrassed to say this. You guys are going to think I'm a horrible dog owner. But I live with an 8-year-old, and she's not always that careful. And it may or may not be true that occasionally we have come in from whatever we're doing outside, and we have closed the door and the garage door, and poor little Sunday has gotten left outside. Now, we have really great neighbors that live in my block. I should just preface this and tell you that we have the best dog. She's such a great dog. Everybody who ever meets her is like, want Sunday. She's such a lover. She's like 15 pounds, and she's really, really, really well trained. Like, you say sit, and she'll sit there. So people are always like, want little Sunday. So we occasionally forget to bring Sunday into the house, and I may or may not be true that on more than one occasion that Sunday maybe has ended up at somebody else's house. Now, let's say my neighbors find her. Does that mean that my neighbors now own Sunday? No, that does not mean that my neighbors now own Sunday, because she is a captured animal, i.e. my pet. She is previously domesticated, she is tamed, and she belongs to me. Now, wild animals, and somebody wrote, how do you pronounce this word? I actually am not sure. It's Latin. If we have any Latin readers, let me know. It is not a word I use in my vocabulary in any kind of regular basis. You will see a lot of Latin words in real property. Some of them are words that are universally used in real property that will use the Latin word because it's what's used in practice. That in real practice, people, unless you're Latin and speak Latin, are not going to say the Latin words, right? That people are going to say wild animals. And so that for wild animals that return to its natural habitat are no longer belong to the capturer. So if I own a chimpanzee that I brought in from the wild, or I own, I brought in a tiger, and then that tiger escapes, and after that tiger escapes and returns to the wild, I can't say it was my previously domesticated animal, so it's mine. If it's a domestic house pet, like it can even be a farm animal, but like if it's a domestic animal that belongs to you, then yes, if it escapes, it still comes back to your property. So little Lulu that got let out of my house, even if he goes to the town next door, little Lulu still gets sent home. If I have, Freddie the Fierce, on my property, and I have an alligator or a crocodile or something that is not meant to be domesticated that I put on my property anyways, and that animal gets out and goes back to its natural habitat, that animal is no longer mine. Okay. I think that's everything. So, yeah, it goes back to the person who owns it, to the person who captured it, like, originally. Like, when I adopted my dog, I'm considered the capturer. So it goes back to me. So they're going to give me that crazy dog back. Okay, so acquisition by accession. Acquisition by accession is our last topic for tonight. And you, really quick, there was a question about, do we need to know some of these Latin terms for the exam? You may need to know in some courses, and for this course, other Latin terms. The term for wild animals in Latin is not one you need to know for this exam. Okay, basic principle here. So the general rule is that if you steal something, you have to give it back. So if I go and steal Ashley's car and go and get an oil change and put in some new car mats, does that mean it's mine because I stole it and maybe increase the value of it by getting an oil change and some new car mats? No, right? I didn't change her car in such a nature that it doesn't make sense for her to recover the value or the car itself. But now let's say that I went to Ashley's house and I stole the block of wood. And the block of wood, maybe had a $1 value. And I am Michelangelo. And I sculpted and chiseled for years a very important piece of art. And that very important piece of art is now worth $2 million. Does Ashley automatically get the block of wood back just because it was hers to start with? And the answer is no, right? Now, is Ashley, as the true owner of the block of wood, is she entitled to being paid back the $10 that the wood was originally worth? And the answer is yes. So if I take something from somebody else and I improve it a little bit, like I take the Buick and I put on new tires and I, got some new floor mats and I gave it an oil change, I don't get to keep the car then because I did those things to it. That Ashley gets back the car, Now, am I maybe entitled to the $1,000 that I improved it? Maybe, but I don't get to keep the car. But if I steal something like a block of wood that's worth $10 and I increase it to $2 million, Ashley doesn't get the $2 million block of wood back. She gets the original $10 back, and I would then get to keep the block of wood. So the true owner, Ashley, is entitled to what's called replevin of the stolen property. And if I, the thief, I decrease the value of whatever it is I stole because I damaged the car when I take it, or I dropped the cell phone and cracked the screen, is she entitled to get back the value that was lost between how it was when I took it and how it was when I gave it back to her? Yeah, of course she is. And if I add labor to something, not just raw materials, so this is if my creation increases the value to the extent, like my block of wood, it's unfair for her to take the original thing back, then I can keep the block of wood and just pay her the $10 for its original value. Okay, does that make sense? Are we all on the same page? So courts often have to balance that, Ashley being unjustly enriched versus punishing me. So if I increase that block of wood to $2 million from the $10 that was, out in the little, trash bin of wood in her yard, the court wants to balance that by saying we don't want Ashley to be unjustly enriched, but also Dee Dee shouldn't be encouraged to steal, so we want to make sure that she's punished as necessary. So some jurisdictions allow Ashley, the true owner, to have a greater recovery if I took that wood in bad faith versus if I took the wood in good faith. Let's say the wood is sitting outside, and I thought it was trash, it was a little junk of wood, and I go and get it and keep it. Then in some jurisdictions, it's exactly what we talked about. I just pay her the $10 for blocks of wood. Other jurisdictions say if I intentionally went into her house and stole it, then she's entitled to benefit from it. So that's an exception in some jurisdictions that look to whether you took it in bad faith or in good faith. But the general rule is that the true owner is entitled to replevin, meaning return of the stolen property. If I decrease the value that I have to pay for the whatever I damaged, if I added labor to it that increased it so much that it's unfair to give it back, and then I get to keep that $2 million piece of wood and just pay her the value of what it was. Okay, that is that. So at the end, any questions, put them into the chat. Great job, you guys. You made it for your very, very first night of the Material on Real Property. At the end of every night, we take a little quiz. I put up a quiz, and you guys take this little quiz. The quiz, by completing the quiz, this is how you get your interaction requirement for the week. So by doing this quiz, it's not meant to stump you. I think if you get it wrong, you can do it a second time. It's really meant to be easy, and this is how you get your interactive question for the week. And so which is true of real property law in the U.S.? It has not changed much since 1066. It is primarily based on state law. It is unreasonable by definition, or all of the above. So here, remember that it's going to be, no, it's not unreasonable by definition. But the year on this first one is not correct, but since 1066. But it is primarily based on state law. We're looking at common law principles because we all live in different states. But the reality is, and that's why I said make sure you check your own state laws, because it's going to, in real life, you're going to have to look at your own state laws. Lost property that is found must be returned to the true owner, must be given to the state, may be kept by the finder if the value of the real property is small, may be kept by the finder based on the doctrine of finders, keepers, losers, weepers. So lost property that is found, you must make an effort to return it to the true owner. You got to make an effort to return it to the true owner. And then you can keep it if you don't find the true owner. And then in which case is the resource considered yours? You see a lost item and tell what you're claiming it. You are chasing a lost cat, oil lying under your property, or all of the above. And here your choice is C. And yay, we got the duck. Congratulations, as we like to say, quack, quack, quack. You have passed. You guys, you did it. You got through your first night of real property. Hope you enjoyed it. I can stick around for a few minutes if anyone has any further questions. And if not, I will see everybody on Wednesday night, or if you're coming to immigration law, I will see you there. Jennifer, what's the correct answer to what? The last question, the correct answer was C. Bye, Ashley, I will. Have a great night, everyone. Yeah, it's going to be the same time every Monday and Wednesday. And welcome all the new students. If you only saw one question, Jennifer, try and reload your quiz. And you only have to take the quiz one of the 2 nights to meet your weekly interaction. So if you're planning on being here, I'll reload it for you if that helps. If you're planning on being here on Wednesday, it doesn't matter if you can't get it to work tonight. And that is a wrap, folks. Thanks for being here. I don't see any other questions. I'll stick around for another couple of minutes. Thanks, guys.